back to my channel. Thanks for tuning into another video. I feel like I always start these videos in exactly the same way. I'm going to maybe spice it up on the next one and maybe change location as well. Just as you probably would have heard in my previous videos, because we're having house renovations done, there's only like the downstairs area that is presentable. Maybe out of maybe it'd be comedy actually just to do one of these videos upstairs and then you can see what my house actually looks like upstairs. You'd probably be quite surprised at what I'm living in upstairs right now. Anyway, excuse the more casual look I'm going for today. This is because it is amazingly sunny weather today. So
we have sun.
Which just very rarely happens, and it hasn't been happening a lot recently. So the second we have sun, we are outside regardless. So I've just eaten my lunch outside, hence the slightly pink arms already. Although I do put my factor on, don't worry. But yeah, so that's why I just thought, just kind of in the mood, sun's making me happy, let's film a YouTube video. And I also actually just wanted to touch, just before I start the video, and let you know what I'm actually talking about today. Although you would have seen that from the title. I did a little post on Instagram yesterday about some of the challenges with weight gain when it starts to become sunnier, because obviously sunny weather equals shorts, skimpy tops, less clothing. So when you've been going through weight gain, it is much easier in the winter because you can cover up, particularly as you just start out your weight gain journey and you haven't got a load of new clothes. You putting on joggers is just much nicer than obviously having to put on a pair of shorts. And I did have a bit of a day on Sunday where for the first time I was like, oh, I really want to put some shorts on today because I was going to the beach, and found all my shorts in my wardrobe from last summer when I was 9 kg lighter than I am now.
Obviously, they didn't fit.
I was expecting it, and I don't even know why I bothered trying them on, because trying on clothes that don't fit just doesn't make anyone feel good, let's be honest. It was just highly inappropriate. The good side of putting on weight has definitely been a bigger booty, but that just does not look great in skimpy shorts. So yeah, it wasn't great, and it did make me initially feel a bit rubbish, I'm not gonna lie. It just made me feel a bit frumpy, just a bit yuck about myself, I suppose. But rather than letting that ruin my day or letting myself dwell on that, I just put on some gym shorts, which I knew fit because I've got some gym shorts that I bought more recently, and just carried on with my day. I didn't let it affect me. I just told myself, right, I just need to go and buy new shorts and everything will be fine. So yeah, I need to do that actually in a couple of days, but I just thought I'd share that because I know a lot of you are probably in a similar position, and trying on some of your summer clothes last year will just be demotivating. But I just want to say that try not to let it affect you. Just go out, buy some new summer clothes, embrace your new body, remember all the positives, remember why you're doing it, and try and just shove away those negatives. Anyway, so that was just kind of something I just thought I'd share with you guys. This video is going to be about the causes of hypothalamic amenorrhea and myths surrounding hypothalamic amenorrhea. Because I still don't think it's a topic that a lot of people know a lot about, I've spoken to quite a few people on Instagram who question a lot whether they have HA, so hypothalamic amenorrhea, HA for short, which I'll use in the video, for various reasons really. I think historically it's been associated more with athletes and those who are very lean. So anyway, I'm going to go into a lot more about that in a bit. But I also just thought it was actually be quite useful just to share what generally causes hypothalamic amenorrhea, as I think sometimes people hear about it, realise they've got it, but actually don't always understand why and how that occurred. So this information that I've done is based on a bit of research that I've carried out. I'm not a health professional, so like I say, it's just based on the research that I've carried out and information I've gained from other people who are doctors and who are health professionals in this area. But always take everything with a slight bit of caution, that if your health professional tells you something different, then obviously go with that. So, hypothalamic amenorrhea is generally caused by quite a few different things, but the main one is an energy imbalance. So that could be due to over-exercising, under-eating. It's also affected by stress. It's affected by genetics, as well as being caused sometimes by weight loss. The overarching cause of HA is generally energy imbalance, and then there's lots of other factors that kind of intertwine within that. The impact of food, exercise, and stress will vary from person to person. And you don't have to be lean to have HA. So that is one of the biggest myths, that you have to be lean, you have to be very skinny to have HA. And I'll talk about that in a bit, but that is not the case. So ultimately, like I said before, the main cause of HA is energy imbalance or energy deficit. Basically under eating and over exercising, regardless of body size. So you could be in a much bigger body, but you're still under eating and you're still over exercising. So therefore you can end up with HA. Likely if you're in a very lean body, very slim, you could also be under eating and over exercising and end up with HA. But it doesn't matter what body size you are, it's more the impact of the energy deficit. Someone may also have HA if they've gone through a significant weight loss period. So this could be years and years ago. It doesn't necessarily have to have been, right, you've suddenly dropped 10 pounds is often the number suggested is to being significant. So a weight loss of 10 pounds or more is suggested to be significant in causing HA. But that could have been 2-3 years ago, it could have been 1 year ago, it could have been in the last 6 months. And that again will vary person to person. But if you've gone through a relatively quick drop in weight of 10 pounds or more, you're more likely to get HA. So energy balance is basically essential. The energy we consume via food fuels functions in our bodies. And if we don't provide our bodies with enough fuel, then it obviously has to prioritize certain things and suppress others. For example, your reproductive system, that will be suppressed because it's not seen as essential. Your body doesn't want to have a baby. It doesn't feel like it's in a position to have a baby because it's basically in this stress mode. So your body will suppress that system and prioritize other systems which are a lot more important to keeping you alive. As well as your reproductive system, it will also suppress things like your temperature regulation, which is often why a lot of people feel cold. It will suppress things like hair growth, nail growth, and as well your bone density. So obviously, if you've got this energy imbalance, you need to address that to overcome HA, which you can do by restoring those systems again through eating enough and reducing exercise, reducing stress. That will then kickstart your period again. Balance will be very different again, person to person, because of what your body needs in terms of how much food it needs, how much weight it needs to gain, how little exercise you need to do in order to get your period back. That's why, for example, one person may be able to exercise and get their period back as long as they've put on enough weight, which was for me, for example. So I gained well over 10 pounds, but I did continue to exercise 3 to 4 times a week at a low intensity, but I was still able to do that and get my period back. Whereas one person may not be able to do that. They might have to cut exercise completely. And that's why HA is so hard, because you don't really know until you start. So, time for a bit of myth busting. So the first myth is one I've touched on before: you're not skinny enough. So a lot of people will say, well, I'm not skinny enough to have HA, I'm not very lean, I don't have visible abs, why have I got HA? But that ultimately doesn't matter. Again, like I said, it comes down to that energy deficit, that energy imbalance over a period of time that puts your body under that stress that it has to suppress your reproductive system, basically. So even for me, for example, I was never classed as underweight. My BMI was still within the normal range. Yes, it was low normal range, but it was within the normal range. And your BMI means nothing. It doesn't mean anything when it comes to things like HA. So just being mindful of the fact that actually it doesn't matter how lean or skinny you are. It's all about what you're doing to your body as to why it's reacting that way. Generally, some bodies are just more cautious than others. So you might see people, for example, on Instagram, and they're really lean and they have abs. They may still have their period. Whereas somebody else, for example, with me, I looked lean and I had abs, but I didn't have a period. Or you might get somebody who isn't lean, doesn't have abs and doesn't have a period, and so on and so on. So it does completely depend, and that is partly due to genetics as well. Myth 2, you're not an athlete. So I think a lot of people associate HA with athletes. So those who obviously for their job, they carry out a lot of exercise. But actually that's not the case. And actually, if you think about it, athletes, they exercise as part of their job. So actually they're not also doing a 9-to-5 job as well. They have a lot more time to spend on rest, on recovery. They have coaches that support them through that. They are on a very tailored meal plan or macro split depending on their sport. And actually, if you think about it, the way a lot of people train, females train now, is very different to how we would have trained 10, 15 years ago. Weightlifting, bodybuilding wasn't really so much of a thing within the female population, particularly for what you would call like lifestyle females who aren't competing, who aren't bodybuilding athletes, just general women who want to be fit and healthy. There's a lot more due to things like Instagram and the popularity of weight training, which is such a great thing. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing, obviously I love it, I do it all the time, and I think it's amazing that more and more females are doing it. But I think it's really easy to get caught up in looking at those who do bodybuilding as a sport and aspire to look that way, and ultimately start eating and training in the way that an athlete would, a bodybuilding athlete would. But then when you add on everything else on top, like your stress of it, like a job as well, you go into the gym before work, you've maybe got kids to deal with after work, and general housework, all those other things on top, that it's just way too much for your body. So I think that, again, that's another myth. You don't have to be an athlete, but I think if you look at the general female population within the fitness crowd, there's a lot more people trying to train like athletes than there ever would have been. If 3, you are not eating very low calories. So this is definitely something that I thought, when I initially heard about HA, I thought, oh, I can't have HA because I'm eating 2,000 calories a day. So in my mind, low calories was below 1,500. So I was like, oh yeah, if you're below 1,500, if you're eating 1,200, then of course you probably do have HA if you haven't got your period. But I'm eating 2,000, that's loads of calories. I don't have HA, and that was my initial thought. But what calories somebody needs varies person to person. It's so variable. It depends on your genetics again, it depends on the exercise you're doing, it depends on your overall needs, so your overall general energy expenditure day to day, whether you have a very active job, whether you sit down at a desk all day, all those things massively impact the amount of calories you need, and as well as obviously the exercise on top. So although I was eating quite a good amount of calories, it wasn't particularly low, it still wasn't enough for me, so I was still putting myself through a very small deficit, but a small deficit over a consistent period of time. So my body didn't have the right energy balance, basically. So that was too low for me. Sometimes 2,300, 2,400 calories, or however many, can be too low for some people. They may be consuming that amount and still have HA, which is why I think often it's suggested that you need to eat at least 2,500 calories, because that is generally a large enough surplus for a lot of people to start gaining weight. But again, some people might need to eat 3,000 calories to be in enough of a surplus to gain weight. It just really varies person to person. But the calorie number itself definitely isn't an indicator of whether you should have HA or not. Myth number 4, amenorrhea is nothing to worry about. So I have heard this. I think, generally speaking, this is less, I hear this less and less the more HA is becoming more known, but I still hear a lot of women almost not being proud of the fact that they've got HA and they don't have a period, but just not seeing the reason why they need to get it back, and which is kind of worrying really, because it is like an important system in your body that should just be working, regardless of whether you want to have kids or not. That doesn't matter, but it's a function in your body that should be working. There's lots of research that suggests that every year a woman doesn't have a period, they lose on average 2% of their bone density, which is irreversible. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody, because once you get your period back, that does stop and it might not have any long-term impacts whatsoever, but it is something you've got to consider. Do you want to, when you're older, be suffering from issues due to low bone density, more fractures, those kind of things? Because that could really impact on your quality of life further down the line. The quicker you can get your period back, the better you're going to be long term. Like, I was without a period for a year, so I know I probably would have had a very small reduction in bone density, probably like that 2%, and that is nothing overall. But if you multiply that by 3, 4, 5, 6 years, then that's when it can become more of an issue. And obviously there is just the general things that come with having HA that nobody should want to have long-term, things like effects of your hair growth, effects of your nail growth, being cold all the time, low energy, low mood, low libido, all those signs that come with HA. If you can reverse them, then why not? And in my mind, it's something that should be fundamentally important to everyone, to every female to have a period. It's natural, it's what your body needs to do. But hopefully through education and through listening to things like this and through listening to other health professionals, and whether that's your GP or someone via YouTube or whatever that may be, that hopefully you realise that actually getting your period back is really important. And if you can throw everything basically at it to get your period back as quick as possible, then that is definitely going to be better for your body in the long run. 5, if you have amenorrhea, you should go on the pill. So again, I think this is one that is becoming less and less common now, that GPs and just generally females themselves are more educated. But I think historically, sometimes if a woman went to the GP and said, look, I don't have a period, they would prescribe the pill, like, well, if you take the pill, you will get your period back again. But it's just a fake pill, so it's just masking the issue. So your body won't be having a normal regular cycle, you'll be having artificial hormones, and obviously with that comes a withdrawal bleed on the 7 days off the pill that is artificial and is not in any way equated to whether your body is going through a normal cycle to have a natural, real period. So if that's something suggested by your GP, I would very much question the reasons for that. Like I say, I'm not a health professional, and so if there might be other reasons why your GP might be suggesting that, but I would definitely question whether that is the right thing for you, if that's something you were told to do. Number 6, you need extensive testing to confirm you have HA. So again, a lot of people think that they need to do lots of testing, go to lots of different professionals to prove that they have HA. The only thing I did was went to the GP, had a blood test to basically rule out any other conditions like issues with thyroid, PCOS, but actually the only thing the GP is really looking at in terms of HA is your LH and FSH hormones and whether they are low, as they're the sort of hormones that regulate your cycle. And for me, they were low, and the doctor did suggest, yes, I think you probably got HA, and that was through discussion around lifestyle as well. So through simple discussions with your GP about your lifestyle, about how much you're exercising, how much you're eating, stress, all those other factors, they can probably diagnose HA without even having to do a blood test. The blood test just confirms it. I know some people often think that they're the kind of anomaly and they probably don't have HA and they've got something more sinister going on, or wrongly, some people think that they maybe have PCOS, but I do think it's wise to get that blood test done, but actually go with your gut, often your gut instinct, and whether you think you're probably going to fit the category of HA is 9 times out of 10 likely going to be accurate. And even just listening to stories from other people that have gone through HA, you'll realise like, oh yeah, I recognise that in myself, I recognise that in myself. You'll probably be able to gain a good enough picture whether you have a HA just from listening to others talk about it. But by all means, go to your GP, do what I did and get a blood test just to rule things out, even if it just gives you a bit of peace of mind. But you don't need to have that testing, you don't need to have a confirmation of diagnosis from anyone. A lot of the signs and symptoms of HA, you'd be able to look up on the internet and you'd be able to tick them all off quite easily yourself. Number 7, you can get your period back on lower than 2,500 calories. This isn't impossible, but it's a lot more challenging to get your period back on less than 2,500 calories. Because generally speaking, you're probably not in a big enough surplus to be gaining enough weight that you need to get. So if anything, you're just prolonging the duration of time before you get your period back. It takes more energy to build than it does to maintain. So your body needs a lot more energy, a lot more fuel, a lot more food to kickstart your periods again than it does to maintain them. So once you've got your periods back and you're at a healthy weight, you're at a healthy, happy weight for your body, You can definitely then reduce the calories to more of a maintenance level of calories, and you'll be able to maintain all those things. But to get to that point, you really need to be eating enough, and there's a lot of evidence now, a lot of research that suggests that 2,500 calories is that minimum that you should aim for. And generally speaking, your period won't come back unless you've reached a certain weight that your body is healthy at. And often to do that, like I say, you need to be in a decent surplus to gain enough weight in order to kickstart that reproductive system again. So I hope that was useful. I hope it just kind of dispelled some of the myths you may have heard. Let me know if you've heard any more below. There might be some I've missed. Let me know if you have any questions below. And yeah, the next video I'm going to be doing is a video on supplements that I took during HA, as someone on my previous video asked me to do a video on that. So the next video will be supplements. So hopefully you'll find that useful as well. And a shout out to one of my followers, Gail, for suggesting this video. I really appreciate you because you always watch all my videos and comment on them all, which just means a lot. Yeah, so I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you.